In Myanmar, Buddhist pagodas stand alongside mosques. Followers of both faiths have lived side by side for centuries. But as a military-run dictatorship transitions into a free and open nation, religious violence threatens to tear the country apart.
Don't buy anything at a Muslim shop. Don't buy a car from a Muslim car dealer. This propaganda is widespread now, and the government doesn't stop it.
Long cultivated hate and mistrust of Muslims has erupted, leaving more than 250 dead and over 140,000 homeless.
If you punch me or step on my head, I will put up with it. But if you kill the monk that I worship, I will not abide it. That is what is involved.
National identity is challenged and moderate views are being drowned out.
Truthfully speaking, this is fundamentalism. They're a bit extreme in their religious thinking. These thoughts have been systematically conjured up by a third party.
I'm Ella Callan. On this edition of 101 East, we investigate what's fueling Buddhist and Muslim conflict in Myanmar, a conspiracy to derail the country's democratic reforms, or a deep crisis of national identity. One of the most beautiful sights in Myanmar is the monks in the early morning collecting food from their followers. It's a ritual that ties communities together in ways that can't be seen. By making an offering, people gain spiritual merit. And in giving merit, the monks' human needs are sustained. Each needs the other. But lately, Buddhism in Myanmar has come to signify something different. Monks stand accused of driving violence against Muslims.
People who don't like what I have to say claim that I am preaching hate speech. I don't base my work on hate.
The city of Mandalay is considered the heart of Buddhism in Myanmar and is home to the largest number of monasteries in the country. Wirathu is an abbot at the New Masayan Monastery and is also the public face of an ultra-nationalist movement known as 969. The movement's accused of spreading anti-Muslim sentiment and spawning violent clashes.
They don't like the fact that I point out anyone who threatens our people and our religion. That's why they accuse me of spreading hate and label me a terrorist.
Wirathu enjoys a revered status across the country. Today he's opening a Sunday school for Buddhist children. From a young age in Myanmar, the idea is reinforced that Buddhism is more than a religion. It's the nation's identity. And monks are the moral authority. Buddhism is by far the majority religion in Myanmar. But there's a deep fear that Islam is spreading and posing a threat to Buddhist dominance. something Burathu raises at his regular public sermons. Burathu sees it as his duty to defend the nation and Buddhism. His sermons are recorded and widely circulated throughout the country. A small bomb went off at one of these events recently, and people are wary of our presence. We don't stay long. Fear and animosity towards Islam sprouted during colonial times, when Indian Muslims were recruited to serve in the British administration and placed on a higher social tier. After independence in 1948, the country's leaders used Buddhism as a uniting cause.
We've seen violence in previous decades by Buddhist populations against Muslim populations, but what's new is that this information is readily available and transmissible. People are using Facebook, mobile phones, and so you get a much greater resonation. Every time there's an issue, every time there's a spark, it's much more likely to turn into a fire.
Richard Horsey has been working in Myanmar for 20 years and is looking into the causes of the recent violence.
If you look at the numbers of victims and who's affected by this, it's overwhelmingly the Muslim population. But there are cases of retaliation, and particularly in Rakhine State, we've seen real intercommunal tensions and violence and issues on both sides.
Rakhine State in western Myanmar is where the clashes started. In 2012, violence erupted against Rohingya Muslims, seen as imposters from neighbouring Bangladesh by many in the country. News of brutality by both Buddhists and Muslims spread quickly across Myanmar, where information had previously been controlled by the military government. Burathu gave this sermon in Rakhine State in March this year. "969's message has resonated with Buddhists across the country. The numbers relate to attributes of the Buddha and his teachings. Muslims in Myanmar use the numbers 786 to identify halal businesses and food. It's a widely held conspiracy theory here that adding those numbers together to make 21 signals a Muslim plot to take over the country in the 21st century. Despite these tensions, there are some who see a different side to Burathu.
In the conventional sense, we are walking separate paths. One could say that we are two people who were never supposed to meet. But even though I can't stop Burathu spreading hate speech in his sermons, I was able to ask him to stop his group before things escalated in Mandalay. When I go to him, he listens.
Mong Mong is a Muslim leader from Mandalay who worked with Burathu to calm tensions when they arose in their community. But it came at a great cost to him and his family.
They said that they won't take any responsibility for my security when I'm traveling around Buddhist neighborhoods. Later on, they included my children in the threats.
It's also with me.
Mong Mong recently fled Myanmar to Malaysia, where he and his son are seeking asylum in a third country.
They do not like me, so they threaten me.
The death threats have continued, and not only from Buddhists.
There are many monks who protected us. Some Muslim youth who are extreme in their thoughts do not like this. Because they don't like me, they don't accept me as a person of their religion. Their threats went as far as to say they would kill me. This is from the Muslim side.
Their future is uncertain. Mong Mong's son waits for the day that Myanmar will be peaceful enough for them to return.
I miss Myanmar. I miss my friends and the food, which you can't get here. I miss all these things. In Myanmar, they kill children, they kill people, Muslims.
Even though Malaysia is a majority Muslim country, they feel like foreigners here.
Ancestors from my mother's side are true Buddhists from Mandalay. They are true Mandalay locals. Ancestors from my father's side originally came from India to Myanmar. We have a family history right back to 1880.
Back in Mandalay, Wirathu is left to deal with community disputes on his own.
To have lost Mong Mong, a person who could have cooperated with me toward peace, is like having one of your two hands cut off. Therefore, I am sad about it.
A steady stream of people queue each day to seek Wirathu's advice and arbitration. Some of these cases are turned into national campaigns. Wawa Mint suffered terrible domestic violence. Her husband was Muslim, and 969 has used her story to push for a law that restricts interfaith marriages.
The reason I want to tell people about my life is to prevent other women from suffering like me. If they want to convert to Islam, it's not a problem. But if they don't, it is a problem. I would be very happy if a Buddhist is released from Islam and converts back after hearing my story. This is what I hope for.
Wawa Mint doesn't appear to be fazed by the attention our interview is generating. 969 has made a feature-length documentary about her called Escape from the Tiger's Jaws. Spreading information is what the group does best. Our visit and interviews are instantly posted on Wirathu's Facebook page.
This here?
Back inside, I ask him about the effect his words have on 969's thousands of followers. He's been quoted comparing Muslims to African carp that devour their own, and sick dogs that deserve to be pitied but not liked.
I admit to using the term African carp. I started using the analogy 10 years ago. It's also true that I've met with peace leaders. If I have to give you an example, it's like America. They want peace, and Obama won a Nobel Peace Prize for his efforts. But at the same time, Obama attacked Afghanistan with drones. I'm not as bad as that.
What is your definition of hate speech? You're accused of that a lot.
We don't take part in violence or pick a fight. For example, if somebody keeps on bullying you and you have to put up with it 99 times, on the 100th time you will hit back. Some of that retaliation may have gone overboard. I see that.
Wirathu has staunch support. When Time magazine described him as the face of Buddhist terror on the cover of its July issue, tens of thousands of people signed an online petition in protest. Today, monks are marching on the streets of Mandalay demanding an apology.
Mistrust of the media runs very deep. You can see almost everyone here is filming us and everything that we do. The monks have warned us it's probably not safe for us to be here. It's not a threat, simply an acknowledgement that they're not really in control of what happens.
Not that long ago, protests of any kind were banned in Myanmar, and Wirathu was one of hundreds of political prisoners locked away by the military government. Another conspiracy theory is that 969 is being used by anti-democratic forces to stir up conflict and return control of the country to the military.
There is no one controlling me. I am not working on orders from the president, and there are no cronies behind me. I am working for my own beliefs. Myself, my life, is the result of my own actions.
New liberties seem to be dividing the country more than uniting it.
The Muslim community in Myanmar is one of the least radicalized anywhere in the world. And so there is a risk that the prophecy becomes self-fulfilling, that through this hate speech and extremism and the violence, that some in the Muslim community are provoked to retaliate or respond. And it creates a situation which really is ripe for radicalization of the youth.
In central Myanmar, I visit the scarred town of Hate.mp4. It once had a thriving and successful Muslim population. Today, red flags mark the spot where their homes and businesses once stood. Buddhist homes were destroyed too. In March, mobs went on a rampage through the streets, burning and killing. It started with an argument in a gold shop between a Muslim merchant and a Buddhist customer.
The incident at the gold shop started at 11 a.m. When it happened, I didn't dare go anywhere close to the gold shop because I'm a Muslim and many people know me. Before the conflict, DVDs from the Buddhist 969 group were distributed in our area, showing what happened in Rakhine State. When Buddhists at the bottom rung of society suffering economic woes saw the DVDs, it built anger in their hearts.
All but one of the mosques in the city was set ablaze. A monk was then dragged from a motorbike and hacked to death. In response, Buddhist mobs began beating Muslims to death in full view of cameras and in front of police.
A lot was destroyed. The mosque and part of my house was destroyed. As for my job, 5 days after the violence, I received a memo that I was fired. So I had to go home and tell my wife that I retired.
Most Muslims are too afraid to speak on camera as they're watched by police. But we meet one man, also called Mong Mong, who's willing to talk. We found him cleaning a burnt-out mosque where Muslims had been banned from praying.
All these things happen according to God's will. I'm not angry at the people who did this to me. When we die, we don't get to keep our possessions and can't take anything with us.
Hate.mp4 is still tense. We spend several hours being detained and questioned by police, even though we have permission to film here. I asked to speak with authorities about plans for the town's recovery, but our access is denied. To get more information, Mong Mong leads us outside of town, where we can speak openly. I was soon surrounded by people wanting to tell me their horrific stories. Mong Mong's family was sheltered by Buddhist friends during the worst days of the conflict. He doesn't hold any grudges.
We do not have hatred or anger towards Buddhists, but on their side, they still fear us. For us, we have to start all over again, our business and our lives. I believe mutual understanding is the main way to build trust again. First, my father was Buddhist, but when he married my mother, he converted to Islam. The whole family became Muslim.
Those who haven't been able to settle in other towns are stuck in refugee camps. Our requests to film inside the camp are denied, but at the front gates, people tell us up to 4,000 Muslims still shelter in camps, and around 400 Buddhists are housed separately. They have enough food, but sanitation is poor. People tell us they haven't been granted permission to go home and have no idea how long they'll have to stay here. Back in central Meiktila, we visit the scene where the worst of the violence took place. This is what remains of the Himiyatul Islamic boarding school. From accounts pieced together using videos and eyewitnesses, 36 students and teachers are said to have been killed here. As the attack unfolded, monks are seen among the men with sticks and swords. Police are standing by. Bones have been left to decay, suggesting the dead have not been given a proper burial, or even removed by the authorities. 7 men were sentenced to between 3 and 15 years in prison in connection with this massacre. A Muslim man was sentenced to life in prison for the death of a monk. 70 people are still under investigation.
Everybody I've spoken to in Meiktila, Buddhist, Muslim, police, all claim that outsiders came here and did this. They can't provide any evidence of that, despite all the video cameras that were here that day about who these people might even be or who they're controlled by. The conspiracy theories go some way towards explaining the inexplicable. What they don't do is force anyone to challenge any of the prejudices that allowed this to happen in the first place.
Moderate voices are hard to find. Even the most senior monks shy away from speaking about how the image of peaceful Buddhism has been tarnished. We've come north to the border of mountainous Shan State to meet Abbot Saint Nita.
Truthfully speaking, this is fundamentalism. They're a bit extreme in their religious thinking. Hatred towards Muslims has been planted in the minds of Buddhists generation after generation. Before I went through a transformation, I also hated Muslims. That's what I personally went through.
Saint Nita went to Meiktila after the violence to help calm tensions and reunite families who had been separated. But even he is reluctant to be drawn on whether the teachings of 969 go against basic Buddhist beliefs.
Much more learned and influential monks than I have been silent on this issue. The government and authorities have been silent about it. Aung San Suu Kyi also is in a situation where she has to be silent about it. I also have to be silent about this.
Why aren't you and other more moderate monks speaking out against this kind of hate speech?
It's too early to talk about this in Myanmar. The changes in the media have occurred very recently. We were raised on word of mouth and rumors. Even in this age and time, these habits have not changed. People still need to change themselves too.
If Myanmar can't rely on its religious leaders, its politicians, or even its most famous Nobel Prize winner Aung San Suu Kyi to speak out, it's hard to see how attitudes in the country will be tempered anytime soon. Saint Nita's monastery is home to 73 monks. Wirathu's monastery has 3,000.
There are far more people and monks in Myanmar who are tolerant towards Muslims. Those who are most active are more obvious. The silent are invisible.
In today's more open era, it's hard for people to see beyond religion when it comes to defining Myanmar's national identity. But the similarities are actually greater than the differences. If diversity can be seen as a strength, everyone in Myanmar might find freedom from fear and freedom from hate.